Hello, everybody. A slight technical glitch a moment ago, so apologies. Here we are on another link, so I hope you find this, and I'll definitely circulate it. My name's Ross, Teacher Toolkit. It's never a good time to talk about performance management, but I've managed to grab Mitch Allsopp, a deputy head at a school in Staffordshire, to talk about performance management at the back end of an academic year. Why? Because they are doing some incredible work, and I have the privilege of visiting lots and lots of schools. And I wanted to, I was invited to go and look at what they had did over the academic year, and also discuss some of their work with research. And I've got Mitch here to kind of pick his brains and share this brilliant document that I have been talking about on my social channels over the last month or so. So let me get rid of this screen, and I'm going to bring Mitch in to say hello. Mitch, good evening.
Hi Ross, nice to see you.
So the technology is working this time. So we had a bit of a double loop. We lost each other, but we're back on this channel, and I'm sure one or two people will join us eventually. If you're watching live, if you're logged in to Twitter, Facebook, or YouTube, you can leave a comment in the chat box, and we'll see it on our side. And I will respond as we go through. But Mitch and I are discussing research-informed appraisal, and how you can curate a culture where staff curate their own research targets. And to a point where I was privileged to go to Mitch's school last month and hear the staff publishing their research. So Mitch, can you just give us a little introduction into who you are, what you do, what your school's like, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Mitch Allsopp. I'm vice principal at a school in Hensford in Staffordshire called Staffordshire University Academy. We serve a fairly deprived community, but with lots of affluence around the side. So it's around about 46% disadvantaged students, but it's an incredible school, and the students have got so much grit and determination. They're an incredible set of students, really. We've spent the last kind of 5 years, myself and the head teacher and the senior team, really kind of rebooting the school. It's had a legacy of a real poor reputation that goes back generations. And the area in which our school is, there isn't a lot of mobility. So actually, families that will have not felt served well by the school have then children or grandchildren come to the school. So we've had to do a lot of reversal of that. But the big journey started 5 years ago, looking at culture, and very quickly we learned that using anything that's evidence informed and research based gives you the best outcomes, and actually drives forward all the life chances. And kind of fast forward 5 years, and things are going really well. Our staff are great, really aligned. We've got the right people kind of on the right seats, doing the right jobs and driving everything forward. And we're able to prioritize everything that we need to, and that we're able to move forward with. And the reputation in the community has shifted so much. And we put a lot of that down to the hard work of the staff and students around some of the research and the kind of the culture of research that we've built into our everyday practice.
So for people watching, I had the privilege of visiting Mitch and his colleagues late June 2022, and I guess we first had a conversation. Gosh, was it back in October or something like that? A long time ago, and we started to talk about research-informed appraisal, and me coming along to kind of see some of the work that your staff are doing. So just as a little teaser for people online, this is the document. Let me just put this banner out of the way. Here we go. So Mitch shared this document with me, at least on a spreadsheet format, before I arrived. And this was the final document. I didn't see until I came physically in your school. And I was just in awe having this in my hands before I spoke to staff. And I think you probably saw that in the room when I was there. I talked about it so much. So Mitch, just give us a little, I'll skim through a couple of pages, just tell us what is on the screen here.
So this is literally the front cover of every single member of staff's evidence-informed research project. And when I say every member of staff, I mean from our site team to the reception team, through to any student support, right the way through the teaching body, up to any level of leadership, all the way through to senior leadership. If you're able to, you'll see we cover a whole range of topics, from kind of pedagogy that will help within the classroom, right the way through to what motivates different demographics of students, how we can bring in more innovation into the classroom, but then even down to things like how do you improve the entrance of the reception area to make that more welcoming. So it's very much a kind of it's the outcome of a year-long project that every individual has created, that we then publish. This then is given, a copy is given to every member of staff, so that if there's a strand of research, we always revisit throughout the year, but if there's a strand of research that they feel may improve their job role in some particular way, it's built into this format, the poster. We call this an academic poster of sorts. It's quite a simplified version of such, but it's meant to be a quick grab guide that you're able to then look at. So what Ross is moving to now is an example of one of the posters. So we always ask staff to explain why this research and why now. It doesn't need to be just for SUA. That could be pertinent to their role and how they're developing. There's then a very similar, you'll see that kind of wavy box. That's reducing the whole program, whole project down into 6 steps, so that if you were to take it on as yourself, you're able to look at what the 6 steps were that the member of staff's done. We insist on influential reading, really within a 5-year swing of to keep it fresh and new. And then you'll see the final few boxes are the key findings are vital. We use the key findings then to inform policy, and that's really helped the kind of journey for us as an academy, because it's not just fruitless. Staff are creating something, there's an outcome, and then it builds back into
what I loved about this, Mitch, was that every member of staff had a research inquiry question. This was a 1-page summary of the research throughout the year. And it kind of, like you said, it signposts the reads, the takeaway tips, the next step. So it's really supporting that culture from the start to finish throughout every person in the organization. I just want to pop back to that slide. You mentioned it's been a 5-year journey. Give us a little synopsis of the kind of key stages and what you need to do next for the year ahead, I suppose, as someone that's at this stage where all staff are taking part in research. So let's start the journey first.
So I joined the academy 5 years ago, and took over looking at pupil premium, and I've done a lot of work through I complete the Future Leaders program, and they were really into using evidence and research to to understand how you can improve outcomes. And therefore I knew that using the EEF particularly to find out what gains you could get would really help. So I started right back with that, in going to the staff and saying, right, let's look and show you that actually through using research we can have impact. And we started to make some really decent gains with that within pupil premium. That then allowed us to move into taking a bit more of a risk with staff and saying, well, let's try, if that works there, let's try taking this into the classroom. So, we used what many schools have used, things like the Teach Like a Champion techniques. We started to consider how the idea of understanding how you learn, and what then evolved into metacognition, that all started to creep into the classroom. And so that moved us in through the first kind of 18 months. Now, I appreciate I've just skipped many months there, but it was the idea of drip feeding it into making the staff see, they'd been hit, they'd been told they were a school in special measures. And actually the staff weren't that. The staff were, by and large, very talented, and they just needed to be able to see that with the right kind of guidance and being put in front of the right things, they would be able to perform. That then moved us into looking at like reading clubs. I always read a lot and try and read outside of education to try and push that into any ways and thinking. So we encourage reading clubs, which we've U-turned on, which I'll explain a bit later, but that really helps staff pick a book up, have a read, and have a proper debate and kind of critically analyze what that is. That took us nicely into then building CPD in, and then bringing it into our appraisal. So it came into our appraisal around about 3.5 years ago, where we actually started to say, let's do an action research project. So the notion of doing something that's, useful within your role. And very quickly, I realized that this couldn't just be a team journey for teaching staff. It needed to include every member of staff. And so everyone was asked to do an action research project. that began in almost a voluntary way. We had it as an appraisal one, but it didn't have much sway on the overall because we were still very heavy on the outcomes being the overriding objective, teaching and learning, which we'd removed grading of observations back in 2018, but actually it was still a feature on our appraisal, and it didn't seem to fit with how we were driving the culture forward. So then we moved to the next kind of step. We moved then into it featuring on people's appraisal, and then CPD. So staff then started to share their projects because it became an equal weighting. So if staff didn't achieve the outcomes, it wouldn't mean they wouldn't move through their appraisal, because if they'd thrown themselves into their research and were proven to have some form of impact, it doesn't matter if it failed as such, but they've really give it a good go, and we could see the journey of that. And their teaching was typically great, which, you know, quite often it is, and it may not always yield the results. It meant that we were able then to move them through appraisal.
A couple of questions, Mitch, just to interject, and for people watching now, I can see people adding some comments, so please keep them coming, and any questions, I'll put them on the screen, and Mitch and I will respond. But how far, so you mentioned the grading and how you removed that, and, you know, the buy-in and stuff.
Yeah.
So now we're at a point where all staff are creating a research appraisal target, you know, all staff, I mean, support staff also, which is great. How far away are you from maybe just this being the one target rather than your traditional appraisal targets? And how much how much of this document, which we'll go through in a moment, is top down or top up?
I would say we're moving very close, because they're becoming very encompassing. When we get the inquiry, when we get the research inquiry questions in, that's where our kind of next phase, as you mentioned previously, is really making sure they're as tight as they need to be and have as much of a narrow focus as they need to be. But I truly think when we've got it to that point, we're in a position where we trust our staff. We're in a position where we know that they can go and perform. So if we know that they're keeping themselves on top of their game from a research perspective, you know, I think we're edging closer, and we're feeling really far down that path where we will be able to trust that will prove to us or proves the wrong word, that will allow staff to feel empowered to continue their research journey.
So have you still got the traditional 3 targets plus a research target, or is it just this now?
No, so we have still got 3. They have equal weighting, so 33% each. This is the number 1 target. So we have an evidence-informed project, which is a 3rd. We have the typicality of teaching and learning, which is a 3rd. And then we have student engagement. So that doesn't necessarily mean outcomes. That could be how you've raised the engagement of students through whatever it might be, clubs, or maybe numbers into your subject, or whatever it might be. It doesn't necessarily have to fall onto outcomes.
So I've got your first challenging question, Mitch, here from Kavitha. By linking this to appraisal, doesn't it lose the purpose? Is it yet another thing that teachers need to focus on in addition to everything else?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's one of those things where we're in the process of it. And I think for schools that maybe at the very start, there's got to be a kind of proof that this is the right way of going. And I think we're now a couple of years into proving that the projects are having the impact that you need to be able to remove them. In terms of the second part about did teachers, you know, is it something extra for teachers to do? I think that's about the culture, making sure you've got the right culture amongst your staff, the right kind of level of buy-in. I know that might sound a bit business-esque, but actually it's being able to say to staff, this will have a big impact on you as your practice and how you move forward. What was really important for us was that our kind of motto, if you like, is Team SUA. We're one team, and so we didn't want it to be exclusive for teachers. We wanted everyone to join us, and that's why we have Ross came along as one of our keynote speakers for our research event. That's why we celebrate it at the end of each year.
And that's what I loved about it the most, is that the event, although I had the pressure of a keynote and trying to be useful and relevant, I absolutely loved being part of this celebration where, you know, all staff got to share their research. There was posters on the wall. There was a bit of wine and cheese, that type of stuff. And I guess the document itself, I've got it under my table here. Let me just grab it. And I keep this is a beefy document, which is a year's work per page per member of staff. And for me, it just oozes staff culture.
Yeah.
So people in the chat box, keep your comments coming. I'll put them up on the screen. But what Mitch and I are going to do, I'm going to choose. Mitch doesn't know this. We're doing this very ad hoc, and we had a technical glitch before, so we're back on another link here. We're going to look at a project at random. So I'm going to ask him to choose a number, but he probably maybe knows them all off by heart. So we'll see. And we're just going to walk through one project, and Mitch will be able to talk us a little bit more about this person. So we've anonymized the document.
Yeah.
At some point, we'll share this online, templates and everything else. So let me just put another question on before we do so. So I've got a comment here from Robert on LinkedIn. I've taken part myself in Inquiring Schools program, which is all this, but this required a mentor for the teacher involved in the program. The previous point from Robert was this: how do you manage the program? Does it have a coordinator, or is it just you, Mitch?
So there's probably what I haven't explained that's vital to the program is this is built into our CPD. So staff aren't kind of working on this in isolation. They'll submit a question in the autumn term, although we have brought that forward. So staff have submitted their questions for next academic year, literally this week. So we're able to focus in on that question. And then it moves into kind of development time. So there's research time given over to staff. Lots of schools do twilights after school. We dedicate our twilights into research time. And then you might be grouped in with a group of people who might be looking at similar things. Our approach, or one of our approaches with teaching, for instance, are the pillars of mastery. So you may be placed with everyone who's looking at modelling, for instance, and then you're able to discuss your approaches within that. In terms of a direct mentor, it filters down, if you like. So everything gets sent through to me. I have a little look at it, but actually it's through kind of line management, but through peers. So it's not a kind of a leadership member needs to look at a teacher member of staff. It's very normal for reception staff to go and be speaking to one of our ECTs about their project and how it might improve the school environment. So it's very much a kind of, if you were to visit the school and there is an open invite, anyone can come and say we're so proud of what we're doing. You'll see conversations like that happening amongst our staff. They talk research, but it hasn't happened overnight. It has been a journey.
Okay, so we'll unpick one of the documents as a little showcase. So there's an offer from Mitch. If you're ever in Cannock, which is northwest of Birmingham, checking my geography here, in Staffordshire. Great school, great culture, great team doing some. I visit lots of schools. I very rarely see something like this. So, streets ahead in terms of teacher autonomy and culture, which is great. So, Mitch, put you on the spot, choose a number at random. So we've got all these documents here. So
I won't go for 7 because I think that's mine, Ross. So
let's go for 7. That's really easy. So number 9.
I think let's go for I don't know, 39.
Is this your one here? To what extent does the typical use of classroom conversations have?
No, mine. No, it's not. That's another one of our assistant heads, Bernie.
Right, let's do this one first, and then we'll choose another one. So, just walk us through. So, I will zoom in on the top half. Just walk us through the document, the methodology, and what you're asking staff to document here on this one pager. So, let's start.
Now, what's brilliant here, Ross, is that you've selected. This is my wife's one, so that's great. So I've got to get this spot on, haven't I? This is so what we ask staff to do is, and this is submitted through like a Google form. In the initial stages, the research question is based on something to do with role. So this particular member of staff leads our quality of education, our assistant heads, and Bernie's got a big drive around looking at how curriculum conversations can impact students and staff autonomy, development, and how that would be. And we've done a lot of work with students about talking confidently about, automaticity, authenticity, what's coherence, how does that link, what does sequencing look like in your lessons? So Bernie will have explained that in that opening bit where it says, why this research, why now? What we'd like there is a kind of link of the context of perhaps the journey for yourself or for SUA, why it's important now. For instance, if someone was to pop up with something that we know we're okay with, we'd be saying, well, actually, is that going to interest? Is that going to sustain you for long enough? Although I don't think we've ever kind of rejected any questions. We've always fine-tuned questions. Next box down is the process. So we ask staff, and they struggle with this, staff do. We ask staff to refine it down into 6 stages, so that if anyone wanted to look at how they might implement curriculum conversations into their classroom, or perhaps how they might use conversations in a more typical way across any role, they could follow these 6 steps across.
Do the 6 stages have a methodology, or is it just the staff have to just think of 6 things?
No, there's a kind of methodology. So we'd expect some form of whatever the research, where you might be, questionnaires, staff voice, student voice. It's whether you decide whether it's qualitative or quantitative. Then it moves into some form of analysis of that, and then you might revisit. So some staff have control groups, and they'll revisit because they might start with an hypothesis, and then it eventually moves through to finding some results. Some of those could be exceptional kind of green shoots that aren't major but actually show something of improvement, or something that shows that would be worth following. And then there's always points to share. So throughout the year, staff do share. I think everyone, we try and fit everyone in throughout our CPD in the year, where they just show where they're at so far.
So if I just pop to a document next door, that we look at that 6-point process again, it follows that same methodology of the rationale behind the method, gathering data, then reporting back. So if I pop back to this one that we were looking at, the conversation curriculum type stuff, we've got the key findings box at the bottom. So is there an expectation to report back on specifics, or 3 points or 5 points, or is it left to the individual?
Totally up to the individual. And we would accept at that point, if it came back as I haven't found anything out, then that's okay. You've bought into the whole notion of research, and sometimes you can research things and it might be fruitless, but you've explored a personal interest within your role. So no, and if you look through the document, you'll see some staff, like Bernie's done here, will number. Some staff will put pictures, some will put graphs and results in.
Okay, so there's I guess the message is that people reflecting and reporting what they're going to do next.
Absolutely,
right, on the right hand side, we've got so I've noticed there's people with different the business name. We've got pictures or 1 or 2 words. What's this side of the document?
So this links slightly back to one of the viewers who asked about groups and if they're mentors. So we've got 6 pillars of mastery in our teaching staff that are kind of broadly what we would like to see delivered over a scheme of learning. So this one's about high expectations, and that's not necessarily of behavior, that's high expectations of pitch of lesson. But we also have modeling, questioning, high quality feedback, and there's 6 in total. If you move down to 1, we'll also have a business aim. They're for staff who are in the business team. And if you see at the bottom of the page, it'll tell you what kind of group from the staff they are.
Let me zoom out a bit. Okay, so business aim.
There you go. That one's teaching, evidence-informed projects. That's at the foot of the page, and it's a blue box. And then this one's the business support team. They'll have the business aims. That's set by the business, and then there'll be and then the inclusion and progress team. So that includes our inclusion officers and our student support officers.
So are these page numbers is this your color code to suit each team, which I'm starting to work out? Right, it's all coming to light now. I like it. Right, let's pop back to this.
That was my method, but it has seemed to have helped. That seems to have worked.
It works. So we've got influential reads. So these are the books that so you mentioned earlier you had a U-turn on the book club stuff. Why is that?
Well, because we were giving staff time to read, but like forcing them to read in a book club.
Right.
And actually we felt it would be better to say, here's books, these are books that have influenced some of us as a senior team, or as a new career teacher, or this has influenced me over in looking at finances. And we share what books we're looking at, but we don't kind of give the time to read, because it felt a bit against some of the well-being policies that we were working with, where you're kind of saying, well, let's all get in a room and read, where actually we could be saying to staff, why don't you head home, do what you need to do, but could you have a look into this book when you've got time?
Yeah, Kavitha left a really good point here about, they like the idea of developing culture, but not at the cost of staff well-being.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I remember when I did reading club as a deputy, we gave staff time, but it was that very subtle line between forcing and encouraging, and then just saying, look, there's the book, take it home, bring it back on this date, and let's discuss it along the way. And I think that culture, as you said, it starts to ripple through over time. It's not a quick fix. It takes.
We also found that, Ross, as well, like it was a small amount of staff in the building recommending the books, and then you were ending up with perhaps, I don't know, 6 or 10 texts that were being shared. But there's hundreds, thousands of books that could be used, and we channeled it into what we thought would be the best books. But actually, some of the books that have been suggested and then used for research would not have come from a small group of staff. It needs an individual to take up the idea of, well, I want to follow that strand.
So a good point. So in this case, this person, your wife here, has read these 2 really good books on curriculum. Then there's the takeaway tips and next steps.
Yeah.
I guess, there's 3 bullet points there and 1 bullet point. So I guess it's just up to staff just reflect on what they should do next. And
I mean, I'm happy for you to jump to another one, Ross, if you want. I don't want people to think that mapped out with.
There's someone, Holly here has mentioned, the document. So we're going to work out how we're going to share this document. I mean, when I saw it, it was raw and it had teacher names inside and data. So we've gone through it with a tooth comb and anonymized it. We'll work out a way of sharing it with people and having a template at some point. I guess before we look at another one, Mitch, those 2 right boxes, the takeaway tips and next steps. Are you collating this behind the scenes to try and look at whole school impact or priorities?
Yeah.
What do you do next with that?
So what we do with that now, as a senior team, we've had these packs since the 27th of June when you came in. Yeah. We now look through to see what tangible next steps we can take and what will inform the policy changes for next year. And that's been really important. So actually some of the bigger ones we're moving through this year are from our wellbeing project. I haven't yet announced to staff the winning projects. I'll reserve that for the end of the term.
There might be spine on the slide. And plus, I hasten to add that the head teachers one's in here also, and it was on teacher wellbeing or staff wellbeing, which was very reassuring too. Right, let's look at one more, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. And people watching live, add your comments here and we'll put them on the screen. So I've chosen one here. We're on number 38. The question we've got at the top is, how do careers education within normal curriculum enhance students' experiences and raise aspirations? So I guess from your perspective, you have read all these, you're aware of globally what's going on across the school.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you haven't rejected any questions. How do you mentioned that you refine them? So what would be a question as a beginner that would need refining, and why?
Yeah, so it's those kind of the broad questions, like how let me think of one now. So something along the lines of staff might want to improve their questioning in a class. Yes. And so if I just use a teacher example, and so they'd say something like, how does questioning improve outcomes? Where actually what we'd then be saying is, well, let's consider a subgroup, let's consider a year group, let's consider what type of questioning. And so it just tightens it up a little bit. But actually, Ross, we've stolen one of your little mantras about, it being inch wide and mile deep. So actually to narrow that focus even more, we quite often talk about laser sharp focus on things. And I think if we could get inquiry questions into that laser sharp focus and put a nice bit of a QA through that to make all of them tight.
Yeah.
So for instance,
Go on, you, Mitch, finish.
I was just going, so for instance, that question one, we would kind of work with the colleague then and say, great, we want to look at questioning. So which year group, key stage 3, which year group in key stage 3? Year 9. Okay. Is it a particular group in year 9? Is it everyone? Is it the girls? And then all boys, it's girls. Okay. So is it SEN girls? Is it disadvantaged girls? Is it girls that, I don't know, EAL? You narrow it down, and then you've got a really clear kind of target.
Yeah,
then
I was going to just interject and say, that inch wide, mile deep focus, that sharpening of the lens, that laser focus, actually, by really being specific and reducing the focus, actually allows you to be much more rigorous with your quality assurance, and I think actually heightens your evaluation and your outcomes in some respects.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with
so, that. I guess let's wrap this up with this document. What next for next year? How can we think about sharing this online with others? What would you suggest?
Well, we can share this, no problem, and we're very open to anyone coming and seeing, speaking, and working with us to improve what we're doing. So we're closely affiliated with Staffordshire University Academies Trust, which is to the university, and they've been in touch and would like us to work with some of their early career teachers and see. Obviously, at university, it's very much a thing. Everything's moving evidence informed, so that's a big shift for us. Actually had some contact from other universities as well to see whether or not they could use that, which is really exciting. For us as a team, we want to tighten up our questions, keep making those. We'd love to make it that this is the only appraisal target. We're edging closer and closer to that. And then really there's a lot of hard work from staff here, and it would be nice for them to be published and have something with their career as they move forward. So
we have to emphasize here that this is a static document, but it doesn't necessarily show people all the stuff that's gone on throughout the year. Absolutely the CPD sessions, the discussions, the questions, the meetings, the evidence, the classroom discussions, etc. So there's this is the tip of the iceberg, but it's a really good tip, and it kind of shows that culture. I've got a diagram somewhere, I might dig it out later, but start with culture first, end with coffee and cake. And it's that kind of iceberg analogy of what lies beneath the surface. So last question then, Mitch. What next for this? You said you sharpen it up. It might be the only thing, but where do you think your immediate step is for next year?
I think it will be into, I'd like to streamline this document, because this actually does become a clunky thing for our staff to complete, and we can make that a lot more automated. And then that staff are able to see that the next steps are actually happening as they move into our next academic year. And we continue to evolve. The dream is that as we keep completing the evidence-informed research, we keep improving the culture and the feel and the environment of the academy. And therefore, we're never chasing an Ofsted grade. We're never chasing a concern about anything. We're just ever improving. So it's just to kind of...
And some of these, when you look through the document, some of these questions are, big things, interesting things, the support staff stuff, as a teacher, as an interesting perspective, you kind of...
absolutely.
I guess you also see what they see as teachers, what we're interested in.
And I possibly think the one you're on there, Ross, was about a member of the admin team who looked into whether a cluttered desk.
And this one here about LED lighting across.
LED lighting, great. That's our science technician. That's our site manager. Really worried about costings. Started to look into that and started.
We've got all the reports down here. So the kind of all the different costs per wattage. That's great to see a member of staff in a school, not necessarily on frontline in the classroom, really digging deep and reflecting on how to make a difference to the school community. It's that kind of NASA analogy. I'm helping man get to the moon by washing the floor, and it's wonderful to see. I guess just to finish from me, I won't go through any slides and keep everyone busy, but I've got that 5-minute research plan methodology, which I shared with Mitch and his staff, how to pose a good question. I've got my verbal feedback project with UCL, that kind of looking at the rhythm of the academic year, how you're asked question, investigate the current research, innovate some new ideas, then reflect and report back how that might fit in with your appraisal. And then the very last thing was this document here, the case for research-informed appraisal rather than target setting. I've done a lot of research for a number of years on that. And then my little 5-minute plan here for the research appraisal process, which I guess is what you can see on Mitch's document from Staffordshire University Academy, what it looks like in practice. And I guess here on the screen is just that academic model, just trying to think of how you could put that into a teaching and a support staff rhythm of school life and fitting it in with the nature of people working in a very busy environment. One last question. How do you fit this in, Mitch, with the busy nature of school life, and how much time do you give to staff?
So there's a few things that I think we may do a bit differently to some schools. So we build in teaching and learning mornings and afternoons where students leave site, but it gives our staff dedicated around 3 to 4 hours. Some of that time is within the research and the showcasing of research, but we'll build it into our CPD offer. So it may be that, we have some teacher learning input, but then we might have dedicated research time. And so we'd be saying to staff, let's go head off, do some research, come back, share your findings and where you would be. That's really helped us with the staff kind of buy-in, particularly though difficult. That's easy for teachers because in a sense, we do have that time dedicated for improvement. Harder for support staff who are on different contracted hours, so they're not in for the full school day. So we've got a really talented support team, and what they do is they maneuver their shifts. They might work an hour longer or shorter, but they'll make sure they fit in training so that within their contracted hours, they're still getting kind of dedicated time to do their research. So it's about being fair, I think, and making sure that we know there's a lot of effort, but we also know that to get the best stuff in front of our students is to allow them some autonomy with their research.
A fair and flexible approach, and obviously you're balancing the different contracts and all the range and breadth of support staff work is interesting and also complex. Evelez here, a comment: a wonderful display. What can happen when a team focus on the effort of everyone working together? And I think there you go. And one more comment here from Tammy on LinkedIn. We're doing something similar. Schedule meetings, 12:65 individual research time. So, Mitch, I'm going to let you go. We only kind of planned this ad hoc last week, and I wanted to share it just before the end of the summer term. We'll work out a way in September to get this online for everyone.
Yeah, great.
Celebrate the amazing work at Staffordshire University Academy. And I hope I can come back and see and hear all the amazing things you're doing. Like I said, the next stage is maybe do a little public event where staff can speak publicly.
That'd be great.
Bring external people in. But all credit to you and your head teacher for getting this done. Thank you for your time and have a good summer, and I'll catch up with you soon.
And you, Ross. Take care. Goodbye, everyone. Thanks.
Bye, everyone. So thank you for watching. This is already on the YouTube channel, Twitter and LinkedIn, so you can watch it back or share it with a colleague. In September, Mitch and I will work out how to put the document online so you can grab it and all the templates. And make sure you follow Staffordshire University on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Are you all on all the usual channels? Are you on Insta as well? Are you that cool? You're on Instagram?
No, we are, but don't ask me about that. I think we might even have a TikTok account, but don't ask me. No really idea.
Right, okay, I'll let you go. Have a good summer. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And Mitch, I'll catch up with you soon.
Cheers. Take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.